Aaron stepped through the door, expecting a small apartment instead. 30 glowing alien women turned to stare at him in perfect silence. He blinked once, then again, trying to shake off the surreal moment that had just enveloped him like a thick fog. His heart pounded against his ribcage, and he could feel beads of sweat starting to form on his forehead beneath the weight of all those eyes watching him silently. He gulped in air, hoping it would help clear his head. Aaron said, more to himself than anyone else. "Hi." No one answered. They just kept staring at him, their blue skin softly glowing as they absorbed and processed his presence with an intensity that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He felt like a specimen under scrutiny in some kind of alien laboratory. From the corner of his eye, Aaron saw Risara standing behind him, her thick white hair catching the light and sending it dancing through the room. Her skin glowed softly too, matching the luminosity of her family members. She stepped closer to stand beside him, but didn't touch or speak, just watched with a kind of nervous fascination. Is this normal?" Aaron asked in a whisper, turning his head slightly towards Risara without breaking eye contact with the others. His voice trembled slightly as he struggled to keep up appearances despite the whirlwind spinning inside him. Risara's gaze flickered between her family and Aaron before she answered, just as quietly but more reassuringly than necessary given their surroundings. "It is different, yes." "Different," Aaron echoed back, swallowing hard again. His hands were balled into fists at his sides, knuckles white under the strain of holding himself together in front of these beings that seemed to have some sort of psychic bond they hadn't shared with him. Risara nodded slowly and placed a hand on Aaron's arm, her touch warm despite her icy blue skin. She looked up at him again with those deep violet eyes, so full of emotion that it made his heart ache in ways he couldn't name yet, not fully understanding the depth to which they ran deeper than just simple curiosity. "Yes," she said softly, almost reverently. "Aaron Shade is something special." "Special?" His voice cracked slightly as disbelief edged into confusion and then fear, a feeling unfamiliar yet overwhelming all at once. He didn't know what he'd done that would make him so remarkable to these aliens, or how had ended up here in the first place. Risara leaned close, her breath tickling his ear with a gentle breeze of air mixed with faint floral scents, and the hum of unseen telepathic vibrations echoing through their bond. "You've brought peace," she murmured almost soundlessly but clearly enough for him to understand every word, as if they were whispered inside his mind rather than spoken aloud. His eyes widened at her words, shock rippling across his features in waves. This couldn't be happening. He was just trying to get through another day after losing the one person who had always held him together, his brother Jack. It was a miracle that he'd even left their small cabin on the remote planet where they'd crashed and found this worn-down cargo bar on Station Theta 9. "Peace?" Aaron asked, turning fully towards Risara now as she stepped closer still until her body pressed lightly against his side in support. She nodded again, but looked hesitant to speak more openly given their audience. Her gaze flickered back over her shoulder at the expectant silence of all 30 women watching them from behind where they stood within this vast sphere home, each with an unreadable expression that felt like a mixture between anticipation and wariness. "For me," she clarified softly. He blinked again, trying to make sense of what had happened since he'd first noticed Risara struggling in the dimly lit bar on Theta 9. Her body racked by uncontrollable telepathic waves until his touch calmed her emotions with a clarity that seemed impossible. Yet here they were now facing this overwhelming truth together. "You're telling me I did something extraordinary?" Aaron asked, more to himself than Risara, since he already knew the answer from how Shed reacted earlier, and in this moment of shared vulnerability between them both despite being strangers just hours ago. She smiled softly, but nodded once again. Yes, he sighed deeply, then relief mixed with awe at such an unexpected turn of events, a rare surge of hope amidst his grief over losing Jack, and looked around the room, where these 30 women still watched him from every corner and crevice in silent anticipation. "Okay," Aaron said finally, taking another deep breath as he squared his shoulders. "Let's see what happens next." Rizara gave him an encouraging nod before turning slightly to look back at her family members, who were beginning to shift positions now after holding still for so long. It was like they'd all been waiting on some unspoken signal between them, or from Aaron himself, unsure if he would flee the scene in terror despite Rizara's assurance of his extraordinary nature. "Mother," she called out softly but firmly into the suddenly hushed room. "Father, may I introduce my new friend?" Slowly and surely, one by one, these 30 women began to move, some stepping forward, while others remained where they were, and Aaron found himself relaxing marginally more as he watched them, with careful eyes trying not to show his nerves or frighten this enigmatic woman standing beside him. A slight shimmer caught his attention then from across the room, and Aaron turned sharply towards its source just in time for a tall figure to materialize out of thin air. He blinked rapidly several times, thinking maybe it was some kind of trick, but quickly saw that wasn't possible, because there she stood, fully formed now, an elder Orellan woman whose glowing blue skin seemed even brighter than her daughter's, standing with both hands resting gracefully on the hips. "Ah, so this is him," said the elderly Orellan in a voice as soft and melodious as a lullaby, yet containing enough authority to command attention effortlessly. Aaron Shade. "Hello," he replied politely, but cautiously, unsure what else there was to say given all that had transpired leading up to this moment. The elder Orellan smiled warmly, those same violet eyes glimmering like stars in the darkness of a clear night sky, as she stepped closer still, though not quite touching him, until Rizara placed her hand on his back gently again. "Welcome," she said softly, but with genuine affectionate tones ringing clearly throughout the room now that every gaze was focused entirely upon Aaron. Aaron's mouth opened slightly, taken aback by such open warmth from beings who had moments ago seemed so detached and distant. Yet here this elder Orellan radiated nothing less than a motherly embrace, despite not knowing him until just minutes prior. He felt himself nodding in response before realizing he needed to vocalize something more substantial. "Thank you," Aaron said simply, but with meaning as much, for Rizara, standing beside him offering support and assurance amidst this overwhelming introduction into her family's domain. The elder Orellan nodded back once, then turned slightly towards one of the 30 women who'd already taken a step forward, indicating some unseen signal to continue now that greetings had been made officially. The woman stepped up from where she stood near an open archway leading deeper inside their vast home, and offered what seemed like a formal gesture of invitation. "Follow us," she said quietly, yet with authority sufficient enough for everyone present, including Aaron, to understand clearly without needing further explanation or direction beyond that simple phrase uttered so softly it was barely audible above the hum of his own heartbeat echoing loudly in his ears amidst all these silent glances and glowing eyes surrounding him now. Rizara squeezed his arm gently once before stepping around towards where this new guide waited at the archway entrance. Aaron followed suit after a brief moment's hesitation, letting out another deep sigh as he crossed over into whatever awaited them further within those shimmering walls of their homey place, filled not just with alien women, but also mystery and potential for understanding things about himself far beyond anything he could have imagined before now. No one answered. They just kept staring. The silence stretched for an eternity, thick and suffocating in its intensity. Aaron Shade felt his heart pounding against his ribs like a drumroll announcing his arrival to these otherworldly beings. He counted them, agging 32 women, each one more mesmerizing than the last, their soft blue skin glowing softly with inner light that cast eerie reflections across every surface of this alien home. They watched him silently, eyes locked onto his form, as if trying to read through his soul itself. Aaron, Rizara's voice was a whisper in the cavernous room, breaking just enough of the oppressive stillness for her words to feel like an intimate caress against his ear. She squeezed his hand gently, a reassuring squeeze that brought him back from the brink of anxiety and into some semblance of reality. "They are reading you," she continued softly, her eyes never leaving Aaron's face, as if memorizing every flicker of emotion that crossed it in response to their scrutiny. Orellans share emotions telepathically. Aaron felt a shiver run down his spine at the implication. Reading minds was one thing, feeling someone else's thoughts and feelings directly through touch and presence was another level entirely. He looked around nervously, meeting as many sets of violet eyes as he could manage without losing focus on Rizara's calming presence. "They need to know if you are safe," she added with a gentle smile that did little to alleviate his mounting unease. He nodded slowly, swallowing hard against the lump forming in his throat. "Safe?" Rizara's hand tightened slightly around his own as they began their cautious approach toward one another. She didn't answer verbally, but rather led him carefully into the center of the room, where 32 pairs of glowing eyes now circled them like an unspoken embrace. The sisters, or were these cousins, started to move, forming a circle that tightened with every step until Aaron felt its pressure against his shoulders and back, not physically, but emotionally. A hum began in their midst, a rhythmic vibration that resonated deep within him, making the hairs on the nape of his neck stand at attention. "They are reading you," Rizara repeated softly, as if offering a mantra for grounding during such overwhelming circumstances. The glow from each woman reached toward Aaron like tendrils of light. They touched his skin, his mind, and somehow they were touching even deeper than that. They delved into the heart had been keeping guarded since long before this moment, but which now lay bare under their collective scrutiny. He gasped as waves of raw emotion washed over him: grief for his brother lost in a mining accident years ago, loneliness from countless nights navigating through empty star systems alone. There was more, 2 moments of calm and kindness had manufactured just to help Rizara without hesitation, the way he tried so hard not to drown under all that sorrow, but still struggled beneath its weight. Each revelation brought another gasp or shudder, leaving Aaron feeling utterly exposed yet oddly comforted by their silent acceptance. "His grief is deep," one woman murmured aloud, her voice barely audible in the room's reverberating hum, but enough for Aaron to catch it through Rizara's translation of Orellan telepathy. "But not poison." Aaron felt a hand press into his back gently, Rizara grounding him against this overwhelming onslaught, while also offering herself up as witness and advocate. "No ulterior or motives," another spoke, this time with more certainty in her tone. "Just temptiness, searching for connection." The pressure of their scrutiny eased marginally then, allowing Aaron to breathe a little easier despite still feeling rawly open before them all. Rizara squeezed his hand again, squeezing harder now as if forcing both an unspoken promise and the bond they'd already begun forming in these strange yet strangely familiar moments. "They like you," she murmured confidently, into the silence that followed their collective examination of Aaron's heart and mind. Aaron exhaled shakily. "That's good." Before anyone could offer further commentary or response, a door opened above them from some unseen entrance, far overhead, though how it had gone unnoticed until now remained unclear amidst all this telepathic scrutiny. Someone new descended into the room. The elder Aurelin, who approached, was as magnificent and imposing in presence as any of her daughters, yet utterly distinct within their ethereal beauty. Her glowing blue skin seemed even brighter than the others, a luminous beacon drawing attention immediately to where she stood with both hands resting gracefully on her hips, an unmistakable aura of authority surrounding her. "Ah, so this is him," said the elderly Aurelin in a voice as soft and melodious as a lullaby, yet containing enough authority to command immediate focus from everyone present. Aaron Shade. "Hello," Aaron replied politely, but cautiously unsure what else there was to say given all that had transpired leading up to this moment. The elder Aurelin smiled warmly, those same violet eyes glimmering like stars in the darkness of a clear night sky, as she stepped closer still, though not quite touching him, until Rizara placed her hand on his back gently again. "Welcome," she said softly, but with genuine affectionate tones ringing clearly throughout the room now that every gaze was focused entirely upon Aaron. Aaron's mouth opened slightly, taken aback by such open warmth from beings who had moments ago seemed so detached and distant, yet here this elder Aurelin radiated nothing less than a motherly embrace, despite not knowing him until just minutes prior. He felt himself nodding in response before realizing he needed to vocalize something more substantial. "Thank you," Aaron said simply, but with meaning, as much for Rizara, standing beside him offering support and assurance amidst this overwhelming introduction into her family's domain. The elder Aurelin nodded back once, then turned slightly towards one of the 30 women who'd already taken a step forward, indicating some unseen signal to continue now that greetings had been made officially. The woman stepped up from where she stood near an open archway leading deeper inside their vast home, and offered what seemed like a formal gesture of invitation. "Follow us," she said quietly, yet with authority sufficient enough for everyone present, including Aaron, to understand clearly without needing further explanation or direction beyond that simple phrase uttered so softly it was barely audible above the hum of his own heartbeat echoing loudly in his ears amidst all these silent glances and glowing eyes surrounding him now. Rizara squeezed his arm gently once before stepping around towards where this new guide waited at the archway entrance. Aaron followed suit after a brief moment's hesitation, letting out another deep sigh as he crossed over into whatever awaited them further within those shimmering walls of their homey place, filled not just with alien women, but also mystery and potential for understanding things about himself far beyond anything he could have imagined before now. No one answered. They just kept staring. The elder Aurelin's gaze narrowed slightly, her eyes glinting with an unspoken judgment as Aaron's back was turned toward the room they had left behind, a reminder that while he might be accepted here for reasons even Rizara couldn't fully explain yet, this acceptance came with strings and expectations not immediately clear, but impossible to ignore. And so ended Chapter 2, The Emotional Examination. Matriarch Velina's voice was a cold whisper, slicing through the air like ice against Aaron's skin as she pronounced her judgment on him, a human in an Arellan household. The room held its breath, every pair of luminous violet eyes fixed upon him. "Aaron," Rizara said gently from his side, placing her hand reassuringly over his arm again. He felt the warmth of her touch through the thin fabric of her robe, but also sensed the tension and either worry for him, as well as herself. "Grandmother, please understand." She stepped forward a bit more, though he still stood firmly planted beside her. "Humans," Velina said flatly, almost disdainfully, her gaze never leaving Aaron's face as she circled slowly around them both. Her footsteps were silent against the polished floor, but every one of those strides felt heavy and intimidating to him. "They are a destructive race, prone to volatile emotions." Aaron swallowed hard against the lump in his throat, trying not to let any visible sign of nervousness show through, despite how much he wanted nothing more than just to disappear out that door again back into normal human life, where such pronouncements weren't made about your species by ancient telepathic aliens. "She's right," Aaron whispered to himself, then louder, as if daring Velina's judgment. "We do terrible things, wars over resources, betrayal for profit." He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, and tried not to let that show either, but knew she'd read it anyway from the way her gaze intensified. "Indeed," Matriarch Valine agreed, still moving around them like some kind of silent judge preparing to pronounce a verdict. "But your species also loves fiercely, protects desperately." Aaron's words trailed off slightly as he met Velina's eyes again, trying now not just to hide, but confront her skepticism with honesty. "True," she conceded slowly after the pause, almost surprised by his boldness herself, it seemed, from how intently those cold white eyes searched his green ones for any sign of deception or self-delusion. "But you speak these brave words easily enough." And here came what felt like a challenge to him, an opportunity to prove himself, if only he could figure out exactly how. "Then let me show you," Aaron said, feeling something within him shift to new determination burning in his gut, as well as fear, but also resolve. He looked past Velina, at Rizara, who returned his gaze with an expression that mixed pride and concern, both sharply evident on her features, like a painting of conflicting emotions. "What must I do?" he asked directly, daring to match Velina's icy stare now instead of cowering from it, as perhaps any sane person might under such scrutiny. "I'll prove myself worthy if you think there's even the slightest chance." Silence fell heavy and thick within that room for several long moments. No one spoke or moved, until finally Matriarch Valine nodded sharply once, her expression changing slightly to something more thoughtful, as if weighing Aaron's words carefully against all others she'd heard tonight. "Then you will undergo the trial of hearts," Velina declared suddenly but calmly enough now that the decision was made clear regardless. "It is an ancient test designed specifically for our kind. Few Arellans have ever passed it alone." She paused deliberately, then, her eyes narrowing slightly once more as they scanned Aaron's face again. "Very well," he said simply, with all his resolve pouring out through those simple words, because proving himself mattered so much here now beyond just this moment, but every future too. "Lead the way." The matriarch smiled coldly in return, sharp, testing, dangerous yet strangely hopeful somehow, as if daring him to succeed and earn acceptance among these aliens who judged humans harshly indeed. "And for what reason would you face such a trial?" Aaron couldn't help asking next, though already guessing perhaps why. "Because of Rizara?" "Yes," she confirmed with no further elaboration, turning instead towards the far wall, where an archway had opened up revealing darkness beyond shadows within waiting to be explored together, somehow now between them all. Come then. Aaron took a deep breath and stepped forward beside Rizara again, who offered him another gentle squeeze on his arm before they both followed after Velina into that shadowed doorway leading deeper still inside the strange world of telepathic wonders he had stumbled upon entirely by chance, but which now felt like something far greater than mere coincidence could explain away. The chamber door opened with a soft click, revealing only darkness beyond its threshold, blackness swallowing light and secrets alike in equal measure. The 32 women who had been watching from the main room all held their breaths, some reaching out to touch Rizara's shoulder or arm as she prepared to guide Aaron into what awaited him. No turning back now, Velina said quietly, but with finality behind her, stepping fully inside and pausing just beyond threshold for a moment. Prove yourself worthy of my granddaughter's affection. Aaron nodded once more, without hesitation, despite the cold sweat trickling down his spine at such an ominous prospect of failing this ancient test, not only disappointing Rizara, but proving true everything Velina had said about human weaknesses and failings. "I'll do it," he repeated firmly, finding strength within himself, even amidst fear gnawing inside him now. For her, with those last words ringing clear through the stillness of that hallway leading deeper into mysteries unknown yet hopeful somehow too for what might lie ahead beyond just darkness, but also understanding perhaps between species divided by vast gulfs, not easily bridged except when two hearts beat as one despite alienation and prejudice alike. The chamber door opened fully then, swallowing Aaron's form entirely within its shadowed embrace. Darkness waited inside, and seen dangers lurking somewhere among those black depths that stretched on endlessly towards unknown destinations, deeper still into realms both feared and hoped for equally, now depending upon courage shown not just here tonight, but also tomorrow, when light returned once more after all. The chamber door opened. Darkness waits. The chamber door opened with a soft click, revealing only darkness beyond its threshold, blackness swallowing light and secrets alike in equal measure. Aaron stepped forward hesitantly, but firmly, his heart pounding against his ribcage like a drum in an empty auditorium. "Are you ready?" Rizara whispered from beside him, her luminous blue skin glowing softly as she offered her hand to guide him through the darkness. Her violet eyes held warmth and understanding, even though he could barely make out more than their shape now. Aaron squeezed back gently, nodding once in silent affirmation, before following her into that void where his fears would be laid bare for all to see or sense. The air within seemed heavy with anticipation as it closed behind them, the door clicking shut without a sound. Velina stood silently at the entrance of this darkened room, waiting with an intense scrutiny etched upon her face, the matriarch's eyes sharp and assessing like twin blades ready to cut through any weakness or pretense. She had seen countless beings come before her over centuries of judging heart trials, but never one so human as Aaron Shade. "Do not falter," she murmured softly, though he was the only one who heard it, since Arellen could communicate silently when necessary. Her words were a silent warning, an encouragement rolled into one, proving oneself worthy here meant facing every hidden flaw or regret within one's soul laid out for telepathic inspection. Aaron swallowed hard despite his resolve, feeling each heartbeat reverberate through him like an echoing drumbeat of dread. He could hear Rizara's thoughts now as she linked more closely to support and comfort, her presence a soft glow in the blackness around them. "It is okay," she reassured silently, but without breaking eye contact with Velina, who watched intently still. He nodded again, this time for both of them. "I'll try my best." The chamber itself was a place of absolute sensory deprivation, every sense deprived simultaneously, to force the mind into complete vulnerability, where it must confront its deepest truths and fears alone, in darkness, beyond any physical bounds or limitations. There was no up, down, left, right, just endless void stretching out eternally. Aaron's body began to feel weightless almost immediately, floating suspended, as if gravity itself had turned against him here within this space of telepathic judgment. His thoughts became fragmented and scattered, every worry and regret resurfacing like old wounds reopened under harsh scrutiny. Then came the vision, sudden bursts, tearing through the void like shards of glass, slicing into his psyche. With unrelenting force, first was his brother Jake's face, laughing at a stupid joke they had shared years ago over dinner. Warmth spread across Aaron's heart momentarily, but it didn't last. Instead, those memories shifted instantly to scenes from their final moments. Jake trapped beneath falling rock in the mine shaft, hands reaching out desperately for help, even as dust choked his lungs and darkness consumed him utterly. "Stay with me," he had pleaded softly through gritted teeth, despite knowing better than anyone that no rescue could arrive quick enough under such circumstances. "Help is coming," Aaron repeated back hollowly, though there was nothing but silence waiting outside those tunnels, filled now solely by death's grip, tightening further still around his brother, who once had been everything to him. Then came the whispering from darkness, itself a cruel voice ripping into every wound. "I knew you were not enough. You couldn't save him." Aaron screamed aloud in that endless void, thrashing against invisible barriers, yet finding no escape, even as memories crushed down upon him relentlessly, now without respite or reprieve for any moment's peace. His mother's disappointed look whenever he failed to meet her expectations, somehow again his father's absence from childhood, always there when it mattered most, abandoning them both emotionally, if not physically. Failures, losses. Every time Aaron felt utterly worthless beneath the weight of impossible burdens pressing down upon him constantly throughout life thus far. "You are empty," the voice continued mercilessly now, echoing endlessly in this place where reality and psyche merged indistinguishably into one crushing nightmare without end. "There is nothing left inside you to give. Only hurt awaits." Aaron fell from his floating state then, kneeling amidst shadows that swallowed him whole, yet somehow remained aware enough still of Rizara, standing not far away, watching silently now with a mixture of fear for what might happen and hope shining brightly despite it all. "No, I won't let you win," he thought fiercely back to whatever entity judged here so harshly. "I don't want to hurt anyone else again." But the darkness seemed insistent on proving him wrong, showing every way in which Aaron had failed or betrayed trust placed upon him by others throughout life thus far, times when his silence alone spoke volumes of neglect and abandonment. Even Rizara's own face flashed before his mind briefly, then her smile fading into sadness as she realized how much more fragile he truly was than what appeared on surface level. Would she turn away from that truth too, if faced directly with all the cracks beneath? She deserves better. Yet even saying such things felt hollow now amidst unrelenting pressure to give up and tear. Let her admit defeat before any chance of redemption could ever come. The chamber walls seemed to close in momentarily, as Aaron fought against despair overwhelming him fully, feeling every fiber of being torn apart by these relentless attacks upon self-worth. But then came a vision more powerful still, Rizara standing firm beside him despite everything shown thus far, her eyes reflecting love and understanding without judgment, even though she knew now each hidden flaw within. "Because I want to try." Those words echoed loud amidst whispering darkness, resonating back with profound significance that Aaron hadn't realized existed until facing such scrutiny directly. He wanted desperately, not only for himself, but also Rizara's sake, somehow to prove something meaningful beyond just survival anymore. Light exploded outward suddenly, then from within him illusions shattered like fragile glass under forceful impact as truth of heart emerged shining brightly amidst darkness, finally lifted away entirely, once more free to see clearly again despite all past failures or weaknesses holding back before now. Aaron fell back into his body, gasping, weeping openly, but whole, somehow reconnected deeply with self after so many years spent drifting aimlessly between guilt and regret. The chamber doors opened fully, revealing Velina standing there, eyes wide in stunned realization of what just transpired within these walls under her watchful judgment all along. She whispered softly, staring at Aaron, who remained kneeling amidst shadows even now, but radiating strength regained after facing demons head-on rather than running from them endlessly like before. "Prove yourself worthy." "You did," Velina added with a nod, confirming silently yet clearly enough what happened here between darkness and light alike. "Truly remarkable." "It is indeed." Rizara moved forward, now offering Aaron her hand again, gently pulling him upright amidst lingering shadows, still, but also hope emerging brightly in aftermath of such trials faced together. "You passed," she said softly, touching his cheek briefly with fingertips glowing slightly under contact, as if sharing warmth and comfort beyond mere physical touch alone anymore. Aaron looked back at her, then finally meeting those violet eyes reflecting both pride and now alongside shared journey ahead, uncertain yet hopeful despite everything previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst such trials. Aaron's breath caught as Velina stepped forward, her presence overshadowing even the grandeur of the chamber around them. She was a figurehead for this matriarchal family, a stern judge and protector of their ancient traditions that Aaron still struggled to fully understand. Yet despite her imposing stance, there lingered an undercurrent of curiosity in her demeanor tonight. She seemed almost hesitant. "Follow me," Velina instructed briskly without looking back, as if daring anyone present to question such orders issued from someone so clearly holding authority here. The heavy stone doors creaked open, allowing a faint glimmer of light to spill into the chamber behind them where Aaron had just undergone his trial. He followed her lead silently, his mind buzzing with questions and uncertainties, but knowing now was not the time for them. The hallway beyond was lined with ornate carvings depicting generations of Orellan history, the rise of their species, legendary battles fought both within and outside this planet's borders, triumphs over adversity that had shaped who they were today. Aaron found himself mesmerized by each scene, wondering how much these stories mirrored Rizara's own journey from youth to the affectionate adult she had become. They reached another set of doors, which Velina pushed open with a nod at an unseen signal calling all present within to order. The room beyond was vast and filled with light. Rows upon rows of Orellans sat along each side, their eyes glowing softly, amidst murmurings too quiet for Aaron's ears to make out specific words, but clearly indicative of some form of discussion ongoing among them. Rizara stood beside him now, her soft glow no longer cold. It was flickering with something like confusion. Respect, perhaps. She placed a hand on his arm gently, offering silent reassurance, as if sensing the turmoil within still wrestling for control amidst recent revelations and challenges faced together thus far today alone. I witnessed his trial, she announced softly yet firmly, into this room filled now by attention from all assembled here. The women murmur, their voices a low thrumming chorus of shared thoughts, interweaving with one another until the space buzzed expectantly, awaiting more information to unravel about what exactly had transpired within those closed-off chambers earlier today. I saw his memories, Rizara continued quietly, but clearly enough for everyone present to understand each word she spoke. His pain, his grief over losing a sibling. Aaron found himself unable to meet anyone's eyes amidst sudden vulnerability laid bare in front of all these strangers whom he had begun hoping might one day become something more. His brother's death, Velina interjected softly, but with the authority of someone who understood not just what was being said, but also its significance beyond mere words themselves. Her gaze swept over Aaron, then paused briefly on him before moving on to Risara once more. There were many emotions flickering through those violet eyes, even if Aaron couldn't read them clearly. Amidst all this chaos swirling around within now, he held his brother as he died, Velina continued softly, her voice carrying a gravity that made every word feel heavy with meaning. Whispered comfort when there was no hope left. She paused briefly, then added almost as an afterthought, stayed until the end. The room fell silent. The murmurs ceased entirely under this pronouncement, and Aaron found himself holding his breath in anticipation of what might come next, not because he could save him but because his brother should not die alone. Velina's final words hung heavily between them all, carrying with it an unspoken truth about love and sacrifice that resonated deeply within the hearts present here today, more so than perhaps any cold logic ever would have done alone amidst such decisions being made now. Rizara was crying softly beside him, then tears cascading down her blue skin in bright streaks against her luminescent glow as she felt Aaron's memories, Tuhai's grief, but also his capacity for devotion. His heart echoed theirs in ways that seemed impossible until this moment, where truth of who he truly was shone through amidst layers upon layers stripped away to reveal self-worth, once more proven amidst trials faced together rather than running from judgment endlessly like before. His heart echoes ours, she murmured softly, without looking directly at any one person here, but instead into the space between them all, collectively holding breaths now, while awaiting final decision of whether Aaron Shade deserved their trust or not, despite everything revealed thus far about self and beyond. The family must vote, Velina stated next, as if reading thoughts amidst silence thick enough to cut with each passing second. Does Aaron Shade deserve our trust, our bond? She questioned rhetorically, more so than seeking answers outright from anyone in particular, but rather allowing space for consideration among those present now, before such a momentous decision could finally be made here. One by one, the women around them glowed brighter, a soft affirmation seen clearly amidst darkness still lingering despite recent revelations found together. First Rizara herself, her glow flickered, then steadied as if settling into acceptance at long last after journey endured thus far leading up to this very moment now poised for conclusion either way. Then came sisters, cousins, aunts, each in turn offering their own silent nods of approval, until even the eldest matriarchs themselves began joining ranks amidst approving glows growing ever brighter with every new vote won here today by Aaron, somehow despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head on rather than shied away from endlessly. 32 lights blazed forth in acceptance, then, as final tally came into view clearly enough for any present now to understand significance behind such overwhelming support found across family lines thus far. And finally, Velina herself, her glow flickering uncertainly, at first before steady, and brightening amidst realization of path chosen here today by Aaron, proving worthy indeed despite all odds previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced together rather than running from judgment endlessly like before. "You have surprised me, human," Velina admitted, finally turning her gaze directly onto him. Then a rare moment where something resembling vulnerability shone brightly through those violet eyes, reflecting back at Aaron now. "I do not like being surprised." A pause followed. Tension hung heavy in air around them both, but also promise of new beginning perhaps amidst such decisions made here today. "Perhaps that is not always bad," Velina added softly, almost as an afterthought, then a soft smile quirking one corner of her lips briefly before vanishing once more behind stern facade maintained for most part, thus far, during proceedings ongoing now. Aaron laughed weakly at this admission. Despite everything else, relief washed over him in wave following confirmation that decision made here today indeed meant something significant amidst struggles endured to reach such point, now poised finally for conclusion. "Either way, is that a yes?" he ventured softly, then still holding breaths, awaiting final verdict somehow, amidst hope and fear battling within now. "Do not push your luck," Velina shot back, without malice, just caution. Rather a soft chuckle echoed quietly amidst those assembled here watching proceedings unfold thus far, leading up to this very moment, poised for conclusion. "Either way, despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced together rather than running from judgment endlessly like before." But she's smiling faintly, and that's enough. Aaron felt it, then hope blooming brightly within him once more, alongside promise of new beginning perhaps amidst such decisions made here today, despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced head on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. Rizara moved forward now, offering hand again, gently pulling Aaron upright amidst lingering shadows still, but also hope emerging brightly in aftermath of such trials faced together thus far, leading up to this very moment, poised finally for conclusion. Either way. He looked back at her then, meeting those violet eyes, reflecting both pride earned now alongside shared journey ahead, uncertain yet hopeful despite everything previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head on rather than running from judgment endlessly like before. And so the chapter ended precisely as described, Rizara's hand offering warmth and support amidst momentous decision made here today, leading way forward perhaps for a new beginning amidst hope and promise of brighter futures yet to be written together despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way. Aaron Shade stood at the center of a floating sanctuary filled with luminescent flowers and crystalline streams, his breath visible as mist in the cool air around him. The meditation garden was the heart of Rizara's sphere, home, a place where light danced like stars, reflecting off the soft blue skin of Orellan women gathered here. He felt their gazes upon him, but couldn't muster enough courage to look back just yet. Rizara approached from behind a cluster of glowing plants, her robes shimmering with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with life. Her movements were graceful and deliberate as she reached Aaron's side, placing her hands gently on his shoulders. "Aaron Shade," she began formally, her voice soft but clear over the hum of energy around them. "You passed the trial." Velina's stern yet acknowledging tone came from behind him, a familiar echo in the strange new world he had found himself entangled with, despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far. "You earned our trust." "There is one more step," Rizara continued, her fingers tightening slightly on his shoulders, as if she could sense the tremors of nervousness and anticipation running through him. The bond. Aaron's voice broke, trailing off into silence as he looked down at their interlocked hands. He had never imagined such a thing, a deep connection that went beyond mere words or touch. It was something more profound, more intense than anything his human mind could fathom. "It is not obligation," Rizara whispered softly, her blue skin glowing faintly beneath the crystal streams cascading around them. "It is not ownership either. The bond, it is sharing." Aaron's breath caught in his chest as he met Rizara's large violet eyes. They were filled with a mix of hope and uncertainty, much like what Aaron felt inside himself at this very moment. "You will feel us," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper now, yet resonating deeply within him. "Despite everything previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion, either way. Our joy, our pain, our love." A soft blush spread across Rizara's cheeks as she spoke, her eyes never leaving his own green, searching him with the intensity of 1,000 suns. "Despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion, either way. And we will feel you," Rizara added softly, a small smile playing at her lips briefly before fading back into that intense gaze reflecting through Aaron's own eyes in this momentous decision made here today, leading way forward, perhaps for new beginning amidst hope and promise of brighter futures yet to be written together, despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head on rather than running from judgment endlessly like before. Aaron thought back over the past few days. His life before seemed so distant now. The loneliness, the grief, the pretending. And then there were these women, strange and overwhelming, but also warm in ways he hadn't expected or understood until this very moment, amidst hope and promise of new beginnings, perhaps despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion, either way. "If you accept," Rizara's voice broke Aaron from his thoughts, her hands moving to take his own in hers once more, as if the physical touch could bridge their emotional distance. "Despite everything previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion, either way. Will you open yourself to us?" she asked softly, genuine plea shining brightly through those violet eyes, reflecting back at him in this momentous decision made here today, leading way forward, perhaps despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. Aaron's heart raced as he considered the question. To fully open himself up to Anna, there especially these women who had come into his life with such intensity and warmth despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. Then he remembered their acceptance of him, his worst memories, the pain of losing his brother. They had seen it all and still welcomed him into this strange new world with open arms despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way. Yes, Aaron said firmly, Thina, breath caught in his throat as he looked up at Rizara once more despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced head-on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. I will. Rizara's eyes softened further, her blush deepening to a lovely shade of pink beneath the light reflecting off their surroundings now in this momentous decision made here today, leading way forward, perhaps despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head-on rather than running from judgment endlessly like before. She pressed her forehead against his gesture so intimate and full of meaning it took Aaron's breath away. Light flowed between them then, a warm glow that seemed to seep into every part of him despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way. Aaron gasped as he felt here a flood of emotions and sensations washing over him like waves crashing against the shore. Rizara's curiosity, her hope, growing affection intertwined with the feelings radiating from all around them despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced head-on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. Velina stepped forward, the unfirm nod in Aaron's direction despite any lingering tension between them, now resolved and acknowledged in this momentous decision made here today, leading way forward, perhaps despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way. Welcome to the family, Aaron Shade, she said solemnly yet with a touch of warmth he hadn't anticipated until now in aftermath of such challenges faced head-on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. Try not to break anything, Velina added softly, Thina chuckle echoing quietly amidst those assembled here watching proceedings unfold thus far leading up to this very moment poised for conclusion. Either way, despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced thus far alongside family now fully embraced in new beginnings perhaps. Aaron laughed weakly, tears streaming down his face as he felt the weight of acceptance lifting off him here amidst hope and promise of brighter futures yet to be written together. Rizara kissed his cheek, Thina, soft brush that left Aaron's heart fluttering despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth, ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way. You didn't run, she murmured softly against his skin, her breath warm and reassuring in this momentous decision made here today, leading way forward perhaps amidst new beginnings, perhaps despite all uncertainties previously known or feared about self-worth ultimately proven otherwise amidst trials faced head-on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. When you saw all of us, you stayed. He pulled Rizara close, wrapping his arms around her waist, despite everything else previously known or feared about self-worth ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced thus far alongside family now poised finally for conclusion. Either way, as he looked back at the group gathered here watching proceedings unfold in aftermath of such trials faced head on rather than shied away from endlessly like before. Why would I run from a family? Aaron asked softly, Thena, genuine question that carried both weight and warmth amidst hope and promise of brighter futures yet to be written together despite all doubts previously known or feared about self-worth ultimately proven otherwise amidst challenges faced thus far alongside those women now fully embraced in new beginnings perhaps. 32 women, one human, and a bond that glowed brighter than any star.